Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Secure the Seat Live. I am your host, Minda Harts, and I am so excited that you are here. What many of you may not even know is that I actually started a podcast called Secure the Seat in 2018. And then when the pandemic hit in 2020, then I transitioned to having the show on LinkedIn so that we could have community, so we could have somewhere to go when we're all stuck in the house. And I just want to say thank you for continuing to show up here. I know some of you who used to listen to the podcast are like, Minda, where's the podcast? But this is the live podcast, right? And I enjoy both verticals, but I really have leaned more into the video content because it gives us a chance to engage in real time. And I really appreciate each of you. So thank you so much. We are in March. We're in Women's History Month. And just in the chat, put a woman's name in the chat that you admire, that you just want to highlight, tag her if she is on LinkedIn, but say her name. Let's say the names of those women who just love us, support us, inspire us. Women's History Month is March, but it's every single day. We should be celebrating women all day, every day. And I just want to shout out the women in my life, my mother, my grandmother, my aunts, cousins, friends, mentors, sponsors, women who hold me down. I'm just so loved by women. When I hear women say, I don't trust other women, I often get sad when I hear that statement because there's so much richness in community. And so if you have been hurt in the past by other women, I understand that that's a real thing too. But know that there are women who want to love on you. There's women who want to support you. There's women who are rooting for you that you don't even know, right? And so when I decided to leave my career in 2019, I took a chance, and it was women who caught me. And so I just want to say thank you for supporting all of my books, inviting me to speak at your companies. I just thank you. That's all I can say. And so we're in another week of Secure the Seat Live. Let us know how your weekend was. Hopefully you did some fun stuff during the weekend. But today we're going to do something a little bit different. I haven't done it in a while, and I wanted to have our time. And I wanted to talk about self-advocacy. I know I mention it periodically about how important it is, how our voice matters, right? I used to tell myself that I didn't have a voice, but I always had a voice. I just had to decide how I wanted to use it. And so if you are feeling stuck, you're feeling like, I don't know how to articulate my value or quantify my worth, all of that is wrapped up into self-advocacy. And you know what? Self-advocacy is showing up for yourself. Oftentimes we're like, well, why hasn't this happened for me? And I'll be honest, sometimes we are in situations where we're just never going to get that thing, and we have to be honest with ourselves that this may not be the place for us. But if we do have mentors, if we do have sponsors, if we do have good allies in the workplace, a lot of it is using our voice and letting people know. They don't have an 8-ball. They're not shaking it and being, I wonder what Minda wants today, right? I have to vocalize that. I have to verbalize what my needs are, what my wants are. And I just couldn't not have this conversation with you all. And I know that we have men who watch us as well, and those who might be non-binary. And listen, you'd be surprised how many men aren't even advocating for themselves, right? So this is something that we all need in our toolkit. Self-advocacy is part of self-care. Can I get an amen? I'm going to get my own tambourine out on that one. Self-advocacy is part of self-care. When we toil away at our careers and no one knows what we want, or people tell us what they want us to do, and then it's not in alignment with where we want to go in our career. I think about in my past life, I got this really horrible advice when I entered into the workplace, and it was say yes to everything. So while I was saying yes to everything, I was neglecting what my career goals were. Yes, there are things that we say yes to put us in rooms that we're not in. I'm saying yes to all these things that were pulling me further and further away from where I really wanted to be in my career. And a lot of that had to do with me not speaking up for myself. And eventually I'm like, you know what? A lot of these things I'm saying yes to are not getting me closer to my short-term or my long-term goals. And whose fault is that? That's on me, right? Because I do have my voice. I just have to decide how I want to use it. And for those who joined the book club last month, when we read about having boundaries, part of that is creating the boundary, right? Letting people know what's good looks like to us. And so I would encourage you all to just think about what self-advocacy looks like. So the first question that I want to pose in the chat is, what are ways in which we can advocate for ourselves in the workplace? So I'll say it again. What are some of the ways that we can advocate for ourselves in the workplace? So I'm taking a look at the chat. And as you all answer that question, I got my Professor Hart's hat on today, okay? And so as I'm taking a look at that, Mike's going to put some of those things on the screen. What are ways that we can advocate for ourselves in the workplace? So off the top of my head, the obvious things are like salary negotiation, right? Promotions, those are things that we can advocate for. Flexible schedules, right? Many companies are saying, get your buns back to the office, right? And maybe you're caretaking. So it's not that simple. So perhaps instead of saying, oh, they're going to fire me, oh, they're not going to help me, no, they're not going to be flexible, what would it look like? Because this is the part of the equation that you can solve, is asking for what you need, giving a strong case for support to say, I'd really love to return back to the office, but right now, over the next 3 months, I'm caretaking for my mother while my brother is out of the country. Is it possible that I can come in maybe on Wednesdays, and then we'll work our way up back to the office? Is that possible? You know, but to make ourselves sick, to be depressed and anxious and not even have had the conversation, what if it goes well? Right? What if they say, oh, I didn't realize that was going on? Of course. And let's work toward X, Y, and Z. Now, let's be honest. Sometimes we advocate for ourselves when we don't get the thing. But you'll never be mad at yourself for showing up for yourself. You'll never be mad at yourself showing up for yourself, because at least people know what you were in need of, right? But if you never have the conversation about having to come back to work, every day is going to be really hard, right? And it could have potentially, perhaps, been solved through a conversation. And that's part of self-advocacy, right? Saying no is part of self-advocacy. No is a complete sentence, right? We say it all the time on the show. Say what you mean without saying it mean, right? There's ways that you can say certain things that don't have to come off aggressive, don't have to come off like you don't care or dismissive. This is showing up for you. So practice what those conversations are. Use your squad, right? Tag somebody in the chat here on LinkedIn. I know many of you are watching on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook and Twitter. We want you here too. Some of you are watching live and some will watch after the fact. But listen, self-advocacy, you will have to do it at every stage of your career. This isn't something that you only do entry level. This isn't something that you do mid-management and then you stop. You get to the C-suite, you still have to advocate for yourself, right? And so why would we leave our careers in the hands of someone else? Let me share a couple slides with you. I'm going to give you like a Sam's Club sample, you know, or Costco, wherever you like to shop. I'm going to give you a little sample of a workshop I do called Being Your Best Advocate. I do this workshop at a lot of companies, but I'm only going to give you a sample of it because I want to share with the community, because I want to make sure that you all are advocating for yourself. We're in the 3rd month of the year. Closed mouths don't get fed, okay? So I am going to share my screen. And what we gonna do? All right, Mike, are we good? I want to make sure that those are being seen.
Yes, everybody can see everything, Minda. Thank you.
Okay, great. That's my partner in shine. We gotta make sure that y'all see the things. Okay, so you know I'm a big fan. For many of you who've read my books, know that I'm a big fan of pop culture and music. And it's hard for me to do anything without incorporating some song lyric. Ashanti had a song called Foolish. All the things that we accept be the things that we regret. Okay, so if we're just accepting things happening in our career, passively moving through our career, then there's going to be a lot of regret. But if we show up for ourselves, it changes the game. Again, we can't control how our manager responds. We can't control how Steve responds, our cube mate, but we can control how we use our voice. We can control tying what we're asking for to productivity, tying what we're asking for to the company's bottom line. Those are things we have control over. The other part I want to share with you is in my book, The Memo, I talk about your career hierarchy of needs. And I take this from the infamous Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but I flip it on its head to talk about what are your career hierarchy of needs? Because sometimes we don't even know what we should be advocating for. Right? You see Brenda in the office next to you, she said she's advocating for things. You're like, maybe I should be advocating for that. Maybe not. But if you don't understand what your needs are, what your career needs are, then you're not really sure what to ask for. Right. And so you don't want to ask for things that you don't really need, that aren't going to really serve your short-term and long-term goals. And that's the first question. What are your short-term and long-term goals? What do you want to accomplish the rest of this year? What do you want to happen in the next 30, 60, 90 days? Right? Think about that. Don't wait till December and be like, scrambling. Okay. So take a look at this pyramid. Maslow has 3 buckets: basic needs, physiological needs, self-fulfillment needs. And you can see what those are, right? Like basic needs, food, water, shelter, right? Physiological needs, the need to belong, relationships, and then up to self-actualization, right? So I want you to think about it from a career standpoint. And this is what will help you understand what you need to advocate for, what you should be advocating for, what you might even consider advocating for. Okay. So if I put myself in this situation, what are my basic needs? My basic needs, for starters, is my salary, right? It's really tough working a job. I've worked plenty of them where you're not making enough money to pay your bills, right? There's not enough income coming in, those sorts of things. So on a basic level, you're going to need X amount of dollars to be able to survive, right? So if you have not advocated for yourself in the last year with salary, if you haven't had a salary increase in like 5 years, this might be a good opportunity to say, you know what? I've been hitting and killing it in this industry. I've been showing up. I have the receipts. I think it's time I ask my manager for an increase. Or maybe you've moved and there's a cost of living adjustment, right? The basic needs are X, right? Or maybe you're not going to get, you know that there's a tier at your job. So instead of like frustrating yourself, what would it look like to start looking for a new role, right? That's going to meet your basic living. When I lived in New York City, it was a hard place to live, boy. There's a certain amount of money you're going to need to make, right? And a lot of people have roommates in New York City because their basic needs are not able to be met with what their working situation is, right? But what could it look like if we at least ask, right? Yes, you might get, but at least but you might get yes, but you're never going to know if you don't advocate for yourself, right? Because someone else isn't thinking about what your basic needs are. And that may be something else for you, right? Your basic needs might be a flexible schedule. You're like, I never want to go back into an office again. Okay. So I don't care. I'll take a salary cut if I could be at home Monday through Friday, right? Those are your basic needs. So you get the hint, you get the point, right? Thinking about what you should be advocating for, and think about it from those buckets: basic needs, and then your physiological needs. I used to be very like anxious at work. I had one manager, we'll call him Bob for today, and he would never give me any feedback. He would just give me more to do. I'd finish it. We move on. You know, I might get a bonus, this, that, and the other, but he would never give me any feedback. So I never knew if I was doing a good job. I never knew if I was doing a bad job. There was like nothing. And I felt so insecure at times because even when I tried to ask him, he would just be, "I'm fine," right? And for me, I realized that if I'm going to do work with anyone, there's a certain physiological need that requires me to have, right? My love language is I need a sense of belonging. I need you to communicate with me. And so that's a conversation. If that hits home with you, what would it look like if you don't have a manager that gives you that? Asking, hey, I'm just curious, I've been working on these 5 projects, would love some feedback from you. It really helps me when you give me X, Y, and Z, right? Because that person may not know how to give it, may not know that I need it, right? And this is how we can, I talk about it in the memo, be a success partner, letting people know what we need, right? People sometimes aren't going to know that. They don't have that emotional intelligence to know that, oh, Minda, she needs that feedback, right? So again, self-fulfillment, You get the idea. So think about what you might want to ask for, what you need, your short-term and long-term goals, put them in the 3 buckets, and that will help you figure out what it is maybe you should be advocating for at work. So lastly, this is like short and sweet. I just want to give you all this like little sauce so that you go into the week and advocate for yourself. And again, this is also good at home, right? Advocacy happens on the streets too, okay? So if there's something you're not getting from home, don't assume that your partner, that your parent, that whomever, your roommate knows what you need, right? So here's some ways to advocate. Content. Ensure you present your value, qualifications, and contributions. That's really important. We're not just, I want more money. Why, right? Give a case for support as to why this is what you're asking for, right? And that just gives more context and content to what, so that person can make a sound decision on how to engage with you. Style, come across confident, accomplished, socially sensitive, right? If we go into the meeting and say, hey, Bob, I know you're busy. I know there's a lot of pay cuts going on. Do you think you could, but if you can't, go in there confident, having your receipts, asking for what you want. Again, what you can control is the ask. The rest is up to them. But if you've come across with the right receipts, you've come across like, I should have got this last week, you have that confidence, right? And practice with somebody. If you're not comfortable having these type of conversations, or if you're like me, I hate to ask for anything. I really, really do. And I will suffer sometimes before I ask for anything. And that is not a flex. That is actually something I'm working on, because our success is not a solo sport. And I say that all the time. And I've had to push myself. And being an author and a public speaker has really pushed me to have to ask for certain things. But it doesn't come natural for me. And so these sorts of things, practice, right? Use one of your squad members, use someone you trust to have the conversation and practice the different outcomes that might come across. And that'll help you build up your confidence. But if it's a high stakes ask, you don't want to just wake up out of the bed and hop on Zoom and make the ask, right? You want to prepare yourself. You'll feel more confident when you're prepared. I know for me, I feel 100% like I can do it when I'm prepared, right? Completeness. Keep a record of your accomplishments. This will help you as you advocate for yourself, right? There's no small wins. Everything is a win, okay? So when you're having these conversations, you're keeping track. You don't know which win from January you might need to incorporate in your ask. Maybe at the end of the year, you're going back through, you're having your annual review. You're looking, oh, July, I did do that, right? Remind yourself, too, that you are good enough to deserve it. Lastly, ask. Be specific about what you want and what you're asking for. So you go into the meeting, you're like, Bob, I really want to be a manager in the future. Do you think that's possible? You're not really asking for anything specific, right? He'll say, yeah, okay, great. But Bob, I've been taking X, Y, and Z classes. I've been part of the management trainee program. Within the next year, I'd love to have a conversation that gets me closer to a management role. Can you help me get there? Because this is something that I have on my next 1 to 3 year list. And I want to make sure that you're understanding of what my goals are too, so we can work together to achieve those. Be specific about what you want. And you could even be more specific than that, right? I noticed that there are 5 management openings. I've been in the management trainee program. I'd love to discuss what it would look like for me to occupy one of those seats within the next 6 months, right? We're getting down to the micro, to the nitty gritty, asking for what we want. It's so important. You've worked too hard to lean out now. You've worked too hard to leave your career in the hands of somebody that's not thinking about you every day. You've worked too hard to be ambivalent about your career. Okay, the homework. Set your goals. 30-day, 60-day, 90-day. Think about it from the chunks. What are we going to be asking for? Maybe you're going to say in the next 90 days, I'm going to ask for X. But in the next 30 days, I'm going to start pulling my receipts. The next 60 days, I'm going to start practicing what that looks like. I'm going to be prepared, right? I might get a coach, whatever the case may be. I might join a mastermind, right? 90 days, I'm going to ask my manager, whatever that might be, right? Another part of advocating for yourself is maybe you're looking for a new role. Next 30 days, you're going to get your resume together, right? Next 60 days, you might hire a coach to help you you haven't interviewed in 20 years. Things might have changed a little bit. You haven't done a virtual interview. You need someone on your team to help you get ready for that. 90 days, you're starting to look for the new roles in your interviewing, right? Break it down. That's advocating for yourself too. Lastly, if you want more tips on how to do that, if you haven't read my book, Memo, it's an important read. It's an essential read. A lot of companies actually have reading groups when managers are starting out, when employees are coming in, they as a tool. So I have more like this in the book. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. But that is just a snippet of advocating for yourself. You are your best advocate. You are your best advocate. People need to know that you're awesome. They need to know what you're working on. Just because your manager sees that you're there doing stuff, they don't always know what you're working on. They don't know your day-to-day, right? And so I do this workshop at companies much larger, 60 to 90 minutes, but I wanted to bring just a little bit to the community because I want you to be advocating for yourself. You're working hard, right? You're doing the thing. Maybe you're not ready to advocate in the workplace, but you got to start at home. I'm sure there's some things there. If it's a muscle that you have to flex, and this little piece of hair just is irritating me today. It's a muscle that you have to flex if you're not used to it. All right. You got your homework. I want to see you in these advocacy streets because that is part of self-care. Because when we're working really hard and we're not getting what we want, we have to look at it. What have we done to get ourselves closer to that seat? Right. So I'm so excited. Put a 1 in the chat if this was helpful to you today. I hope that it was. It was just in my heart to have a conversation about self-advocacy, especially during Women's History Month. And if you do want to hire or have a conversation about what it looks like to bring me in and talk about this, I've done this workshop for all staffs, not just women, all the things. So, would love to help because there's so much into this and it's so important. All right, well, it's affirmation time. And I'll say this. You all know I am a lover of grits and rap lyrics. And for those who may not know, I ask my guests every week how they like to have their grits. And in my opinion, the best way to eat them is with butter and salt. Sometimes I will have shrimp, but never sugar, never. You know what? I don't even have sugar in my house. You know what I'm saying? Now, I do have sugary things in my house, unfortunately, but I do not have sugar to use. So it's one of those things but I'm really curious, for those who eat grits, what brand do you like? Because that's another thing, right? I've been places where I've gone to the grocery store and they have grits on the shelf, and it's a brand that I ain't never heard of. And I've tried to cook them and they don't taste as good. So I'm curious, for those who really know how to cook grits, what's your favorite brand? Then I know we on the same page. My rap lyric this week, I'm gonna go with Beyonce because she drops the bars. But she says that in a song called Cozy, she says, I'm comfortable in my skin. I hope that you will get to the point where you're so comfortable that advocacy comes second nature for you. You put imposter syndrome out of the way. You know that you belong. You know that you've worked hard for this. And regardless of you get a yes or a no, you're comfortable. You're cozy because you showed up for you. And so I hope that you will find some comfort in that as you go into the week. So without further ado, let's bring Mike up to the stage and get into our affirmation.
Hey.
Hey, Michael Hartz. How are you?
Good. Awesome show today, Minda. That was really good knowledge, really good insight. And thank you for sharing personal stories. It really hits home. Really.
Thank you. What does self-advocacy mean to you?
I think, if we don't speak up for ourselves, if we don't speak up for our principles, then, how are we going to expect others to speak up for us? A lot of times we have been taught to hold our head down low, look at the ground, work hard, and give others credit at work, even with stuff they haven't done. In meetings, we won't raise our hands. We'll let because other people take the credit in a minute. they'll do that in a minute in any area of our lives. So if you don't advocate for yourself, if you don't advocate for your own morals, your own values, your own beliefs, no matter how unpopular it is to raise your hand for yourself, sometimes you have to do it because you have to let people know. Healthy boundaries are really good, actually. A lot of times we think rules and boundaries. I don't want to tell nobody off, or I don't want to step on anybody's toes. But people will sure tell us off. People will sure get us straight about the littlest things. And we're not saying to do that. We're just saying stand up for yourself. Be your greatest advocate. Be your greatest cheerleader. Tell other people how you want to be treated in every area of your life. And it will produce, leaps and bounds for your personal life and business life. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So hit us with the affirmation that we've been working on each week.
Yeah. So this month, our affirmation is there is nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with me. This could be your greatest confession. This could be your greatest affirmation. There's a difference between identifying things you need to work on and accepting those things as your personality, accepting those things as your end all be all, accepting those things. We are not called to accept just anything for our lives just because we're struggling with it. You may be struggling with an addiction. You may be struggling with something that's bothering you in your mind. You may be struggling with people who are at work trying to make you feel silly or less than. Those are things that you're dealing with. But once you take those things that you're dealing with to accept those things and say, this is who I am, there's something wrong with me. There's a reason why people get jealous of me. There's a reason why people mistreat me. I deserve this. When you start in that vein, then it becomes an issue. The confession and the affirmation of there is nothing wrong with me will produce something in your life. There's a difference between accepting things that you do wrong or accepting struggles and shortcomings and getting help rather than just blindly accepting any mistreatment, anything that goes wrong. We're just, yeah, that's me. That's only, I've heard this before. Only this would happen. Only something like this would happen to me. Only this is my luck. This is what always happens. And you're producing those results. We have to confess, we have to speak, we have to believe. There is nothing wrong with me. I will get the help I need. This will still be my year. No matter how far in the year we are, this is still my year. This is still my time. This is still my season. There is nothing wrong with me. Thank you, Minda.
Ooh, I don't know anything else to say, but amen. If you don't mind, I don't know. You don't have to believe the way we do, but put an amen and put a 2 in the chat. Put something in the chat. Put something because I think we all need to hear that there's nothing wrong with us, right? When you go and advocate for yourself, and the person might say no, don't even go into it and talk yourself out of it. Like they're not going to do it because they didn't do it for Brenda and da 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 da. Or they don't give me what I want, but they gave it to Brenda. There must be something wrong with me. No, you don't know what is going on in that person's life. You might have asked them something and their spouse just divorced them. You don't know the reasons why people respond to you. So to create this narrative, everybody hates me. Nobody likes me. I don't have any friends. You got a bunch of friends here every Monday. The squad is plentiful. Okay. Like, let's change the narrative, right? There's so many narratives out there in the world. People that know us, don't know us, assumptions, biases, all the things. There's nothing wrong with you.
That's it, Minda. That's it.
100%. Listen, thank you for joining us. Tag somebody in the chat to join us. We appreciate you. We're rooting for you. There's nothing wrong with you. You are your best advocate. We will see you next week here at Secure the Seat, and keep securing your seat.